Hey, this is going to be our demonstration on hair, and I think I'm going to start out with this guy. Okay, and what I want to go through here is I want to go through the basic categories that we got from Jonathan Hardesty. So the first thing that I want to talk about is we are going to be tasked with rendering the hair, and the first thing that we want to know is we want to know what is the local color. So let's see, we can do better than that. Let's say that our representation of Jack Black's face is something like this, okay? And we're starting to talk about how his hair works in terms of his face. And the first thing that you want to think about is you want to think about its local color. So the local color here, the local value, more importantly than the local color, is dark. He has like kind of dark brown hair. So you're going to have to find where your light source is and recognize this object as a darker object. And because it's a darker object, his hair is going to go from black to mid-value back down to black. And can you see how this would be, like if we just imagined that his entire face was covered with hair, which it's not that far away from, we could do this. We could go, we're dropping down and we're covering this whole part of his face with hair, and we're coming up and we're moving up to the light and we're dropping back down. Okay, and so if his entire face, the local value, we could say, falls someplace in that zone. And so when we're working on overall representing his hair, that's the first thing that we want to think about. So the next thing that we want to think about is reflectivity. And the reflectivity is not very much. Like if his hair was wet, he would have like a great deal of reflectivity in his hair. But because it's not so wet, it's not going to have that. Age, weather, nothing really to deal with that. The silhouette is something really to pay attention to. Like for instance, notice all of this little detail in here, and that really helps us. And like you see all of this little detail in here, so the edge detail really gives us a lot. Look at in there, the really soft part of his hair where it's coming out, okay? And so transparency, there's really not much of an issue of transparency happening here. So let's see what we can do to render Jack Black's hair. Okay, so this is what I'd like for you guys to do. I don't want us to think very much about his face. Let's just say it's kind of round and on the heavy side, and then we're going to quickly sketch what his hair, the basic shape of his hair and how it looks. And now the next thing that I would do is I would go through and I would start to lay in the basic tone. So the basic tone of his hair we already talked about. It's pretty dark. And as you're laying in the basic tone, you can start to give some real consideration to what the shape is. So this is the dark zone down in here. And as we go up towards the light direction, which is up here, the hair is going to lighten because it's on the top part of the form. So we're moving up into the top part of the form up here. And everything is going to really lighten up as you move up that way. And then back down through here into darkness. So this is the first consideration which we really got through there. Now the next thing that you want to do is you want to start to think like, well, what are what are the smaller forms? So we've navigated the first level of form, which is like that it's essentially a large dark circle, right? And his hair is coming down this way, and this part is more in shadow than what happens up here. Okay, so I'm starting to feel pretty good about having established these values, the basic values that create the big sense of form on his head. And now, like I was talking about, how will I go about establishing the smaller sense of form, like the littler forms that are involved in his hair? So one of the things that you want to think about is you want to think about the hair kind of like almost in pieces of fabric or something like that. Like, see this part of his hair right here? We could think of it as a piece of fabric with another piece of fabric kind of wrapping around it like that. So there's these big pieces of fabric that we can kind of big sheets that we can think of. And as you move up through here, this piece in here is a lower piece, and it's darker. And it's shooting out in this direction. And this piece up here is lighter, and it's carrying over in this direction. And as it lightens out this way, we'll see it will really lighten out towards the top. Okay, so that's one of the big forms of the hair that we're seeing. Okay, now how about this piece right through there? That piece right through there. So that piece, again, it has, as if we think of it like a piece of fabric, like let's say it was a piece of fabric that was doing this and then wrapping around onto the top of his head. So we're going to have a kind of a dark section, and it'll move up into a kind of a light section. And here's our dark section. And we're just going to turn the form up into the lighter section. And when we get to right here, you see that? Right there? Now that's like another piece of fabric that's laying over this and really participating in that. So this is like one whole piece right in there that we can draw. So you can say, okay, here's one other entire piece, and we're going to give it a bottom side. Let's see, what do I have to do to get rid of that? I want my reference to be cleaner. How far back do I have to go? Okay, so yeah, I want to give it a bottom side here and come curling around in that direction. So this piece of fabric has a top side, and the one behind it also has a top side. Now over here what's happening, so there's like one piece of fabric that goes like this way, comes out like this, and it's got a bottom in there. So I can sketch that in. There's like a piece down here. I'm going to sketch in the lower part of this, and it turns upwards. And there's an underside of it there, going out this way. Okay, and now what's happening up in here is out towards the light. And that handles, we've broken his hair into kind of like 4 or 5 smaller forms, and now what you want to do is you want to say, okay, so we've handled the local value, we've handled, we've done local value, we've gone back, we did the large form. Now we're handling, now we're going to go in and we're going to see what we have to do about the shape of our silhouette. Okay, and so for instance in here, as hair comes through this way, and then you'll kind of take your eraser and erase away little areas that, and so you can start to achieve the kind of edge. And be careful because it's not as sharp as it might look. So you see how I'm softening these little edges in here, and then but his hair comes down and it has this kind of really interesting edge detail on it. And what's happening is there are a lot of little strands of hair in here, but they're not so strongly articulated that you don't see them like little strings. They just make this kind of haze that's coming over to this side of his head. You can see this kind of light haze in there. And then there will be some individual strands, like a very few individual strands kind of shooting out this way. And then once you have a kind of, so now, okay, so what we'll do is we'll establish all the edges. So let's see what's happening on the silhouette over here. The silhouette is really softening over here, as it turns out. So his hair is kind of, it's a little bit on the frizzy side, and so it's soft as it moves out beyond the basic shape. As it gets more dense through there, it hardens, but out through, but this is up in the light. So up in the light, it doesn't go to white. His hair is a dark color, and in order to look realistic, okay, but you want to keep that sense of a soft edge, so you're really just going to be soft. Down through here, notice again the kind of soft edge that you find right there. But then here, you're not actually seeing the edge of the hair. There you're actually seeing the edge of the face. But now as we move out this way, again, now the hair is going to move into these little shapes like this down towards here. These little, and then the shapes disappear in this part, and you just get a really gently transitioning edge. And then a few strands of hair in here, and we've moved up into the light, and we're softening. Just gentle strands that are creating a kind of a frizzy haze. Okay. And now we're getting close. We've addressed our edges. And now what you want to do is you want to go in and just kind of assert some details, because remember the way that we've shaded strands. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to say, okay, there's some, and you would take your kneaded eraser and you would come in and shade these like little strands of hair that run through here that are like, they're little bits of straw or something that's kind of catching the light. And using your eraser, you can establish some nice edge detail. Like this shape here, you see that what I used to initially shape the hair is not useful at all anymore. And I might even try to cut out kind of a large section in here to give one of those big strands of hair the way that they look. And this is an interesting section in here. I'm tempted to work towards building a deeper form. See where all of these pieces in here kind of overlap? There's kind of a deeper form in there. And then once I've built the darkness that would be associated with the deeper form there, then I would like to go back and over the top of that pull some and through here I feel like too much texture. Okay, and I'm contented that I've got an okay likeness of Jack Black's hair in here. I think it would be nice if I could get a little bit more light up through here. And maybe even some real light, like as it turns out that way. But you want to be really careful with that. Don't overdo it. And I think it looks a lot like Jack Black's hair. Okay.